If Flo can have demons in the public eye, if Diana D. Ross, the boss Ross, can have demons in the public eye, why the fuck Mary Wilson can't have faults? Okay? She's a bitch.
Hello, black hole. See this brother winning, man. Hey, hey, look, what is your win, babe? What is your win, babe? What is your win, babe?
Well, hello there, love bugs. Hello there, Bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share the Facebook, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. Today's looky would be our 85 South belt. I'm telling you, you can't get a better bargain, but here on uptopbeauty.com. And if you are not already a part of our book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, yes you, can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, deliver us from temptation. The tragic and shocking story of the Temptations and Motown by Tony Turner, who we so lovingly call TT. Meanwhile, fans online outside were for the first time getting a little antsy, especially when the attendant went out there like a big bad mama to announce loud and clear, there is no public viewing. Baby, when that woman stood in front of that funeral home and told those people that there would be no viewing, the crowd went berserk. They ran across the lawn right up to the front door. We've been here since 6 in the morning. We got to see David Ruffin. You crazy woman? I always ask that. I always got to ask that randomly. Bitches, you crazy? And then all those people started screaming. The old ones, the young ones, the bougie ones, the homeless ones. They were ready to riot. Only when someone from the band said, "Miss, you better let them in," did she very quickly announce, "Okay, when David Ruffin's staff leaves, you may come in, but you'll have to walk very, very swiftly past the casket. There's to be no stopping." The crowd calmed down instantly. "Okay, bitch. Because you don't want it with them Davy Ruffin fans. Matter of fact, you don't want it with them Motown fans. Purr." I talk about berry bed bug bites, quite harshly over here. But like I said, I will not waste my breath on anybody who I do not have extreme respect for. Even though we done found out that the Murray Wilson was around there with the Sammy Davis Jr. with no top on, shaking it, titty tossing around there with that old ass man, girl, they didn't have Viagra then. I don't know what you thought was going to happen. I watched them filing in before we left. The line was moving very fast and in a very orderly fashion. Nobody said much. I watched the line come in the front entrance and file past the body, and then I watched as people came out the back door and into the parking lot. Some people went in crying quietly, looked at David, and as soon as they got out into the parking lot, they broke down and cried hysterically. Some of them collapsed on the ground. We all truly loved David. He was our star, a legend, but he was also a man of the world and a man of the street. Touchable and approachable. People who were coming to see him for the final time identified with him in one way or another. I was in jail too. I know what the hell he went through. I'm an addict. I know what it is to get hooked. They shouldn't have put him in jail. David needed treatment, love, and affection. Every one of us has a vice. Fact. And I will continue to say that I do not have any judgment about anyone with an addiction. Yeah, I joke a lot okay, about people who have their vices with drugs. But there are so many other ways that people can have or deal mentally with their emotions. Like I told y'all before, I may not be obese. Well, according to the white people scale, I'm obese. Okay. They told me as soon as I reached 188, then I was considered obese. Okay. I think I'm like 186 now, but I will always struggle with a sugar addiction. Some of them just loved him for his voice. You don't judge people by the way they live their lives, but by what they leave behind. And David Ruffin left beautiful music behind. Fact. Over a 4-day period, a staggering number of fans and friends, maybe 20,000 or so, filed past David's lean, lifeless body in that funeral home. Some just wanted to say goodbye to a man they had never even met, but felt they had known. And on the 9th day after his death, David Eli Ruffin, the voice of the Temptations, was buried. Now hold on tight, because that's not the end, y'all. Y'all got to know what a damn shenanigan this funeral was, okay? As we strolled into the church and down the center aisle, the reaction was only a little more restrained than the reaction outside had been. I could feel the intense heat as soon as I entered. That's because niggas bring heat, baby. The sanctuary was packed and lined with what seemed to be about 100 wreaths. Center front was the casket, open from head to toe. The scene looked strangely like one big movie set. Television and still cameras were everywhere. We had to step over miles of cable to get down the center aisle, and then we had glaring spotlights shining in our faces. There were cameras focused right down on the casket, cameras peeking from between the wreaths, cameras looking down from the balcony, cameras trained on the stars who were already seated. Eddie and Dennis walked straight up to the casket past the ushers who were trying to quiet the crowd. They kissed David, and immediately a hush fell over the church. A hush broken only by the flashing of flashbulbs. Josie and I were next, followed by the male backup singers and the band. We were a tearful, close-knit family as we walked down the aisle to say our last farewell. Aretha Franklin quietly told me where we were to be seated, and we made our way there. Just as we sat down, the Four Tops arrived, looking very somber. Stevie Wonder was already in the church. Of course, Melvin Franklin and various other Temptations were in the house, as was Martha Reeves. Ooh, I loved it when she said that bitch straight. The Four Tops had just reached the casket when someone asked me, "Who is that dame with that horrible hair up there at David's casket with Duke Farquhar?" A short while later, Eddie and Dennis both turned around and stared at me curiously, so I leaned up, and Eddie said to me quietly, "Tony, don't you tell me you're not going to speak to Murray." "What are you talking about?" "Murray who?" "Murray Wilson. She's here. She's right over there in the 4th row behind Dennis's mother." Dennis told me that Murray had come over to me, but that I had never even lifted my head. Honestly, I had not seen or heard her. By this point, Dennis and Eddie were glaring at me while the others looked on. "You should go and say something to Mary," Dennis told me, and I wanted to. Only Dennis didn't know what I wanted to say. After all, this was the same Murray Wilson who had me thrown out of a Beverly Hills bookstore that had booked us both for autograph sessions on my last book tour. Okay, pause. So I know some of you Murray Wilson fans, y'all be tripping. Okay. I know some of y'all want to pretend like Murray Wilson is perfect. Look, we all got our demons. If Flo can have demons in the public eye, if Diana D. Ross, the boss Ross, can have demons in the public eye, how the fuck Murray Wilson can't have faults? Okay? She's a bitch. Okay? Period, point blank. She can be a bitch. And she worked very hard at acting like this small, gentle lotus flower whose petals have not opened yet. She tricked you bitches. So when the first opportunity arose, I went over and gave her a polite hug. and the Hollywood kiss. And that's when I realized that this was the dame with the horrible hair, the woman whom we had seen standing at the casket with Duke Farquhar of the Four Tops. Now, that was the one who she was fucking. Look, and remember, Duke Farquhar was married. Don't nobody say nothing about that. Y'all still want to act like the Mary Wilson is the most pristine, supreme in the world. Y'all know she was hunting a married man, right? Okay, I just checked. Matter of fact, she hunting two married men. Okay, I was just checking. I returned to my seat and sensed that Eddie and Dennis were not satisfied. I had acknowledged Mary. The family was intact. An usher approached our group and asked if we would mind the spinners sitting next to us. Nobody minded. But when the 5 men and their 4 beefy bodyguards took their seats, we were shocked to discover that these were not the spinners, but Otis Williams and his Temptations. A hush fell over the group. Nigga, what? Stop it. It was more like a fashion show crossed with a costume party. People were dressed in bright red and vibrant oranges, greens, and purples. There were the Mariah Carey wannabes in their micro minis. There were a couple of black and white Madonnas, several Diana Ross clones in sequins, bugle beads, and hair. What? Bitch, this ain't the BET Awards. You had halter tops and bustiers, backless and sleeveless dresses, and men dressed in everything from GQ tucks to jeans. I'm sure I was the only one of David's friends to find the whole thing totally disrespectful. Being raised by your grandmother makes you a different type of person, okay? Especially when you're in my age bracket, okay? Because your grandmothers still have that. We are black, so we have to be better and do better than our white counterparts. Yes, them white people over there, they acting a nigga, but guess what? You are. And we will not show them any of our flaws. There was no way that I was going to step into the church without my, my black patent leathers, my ruffle socks, my gloves, some extravagant white quinceañera dress that my grandmother used to dress me up in, hair fried, dyed, laid to the side. I had that sponge curler right here for my bang. You know what I'm saying? There was no way that I would ever walk into a church unless it was that kind of church that allows you to come as you are. But because I told you my father was is a apostolic minister, them motherfuckers ain't having it, okay? Like basically you can't even wear fingernail polish on your finger. All you can do is just cook cornbread with them ninjas. I love you. Okay, but I'm just telling you the truth. All right, don't get mad at me. I was just taking in the crowd when I saw 2 men in suits walking up to Eddie and whisper something in his ear. Eddie got up from his seat and left with the men. He came back shortly thereafter and whispered something to Dennis. The men returned about 10 minutes later. This time Dennis said something to Josie before he too got up and left with Eddie and the men. I could see by the look on his face that something odd was going on. Josie whispered to me, "Tony, they're arresting Eddie." Now, if you have not already done so, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. Now remember this, the same people that you meet on the way up will always be the same people that you meet on the way down. My naysayers, my patron loves you babies. Y'all better have a good one. What? I screamed. I'm a little Josie whispered to me, Tony, they're arresting Eddie. What? I screamed. I'm a little excitable. Josie whispered to me, Tony, they're arresting Eddie. What? I screamed. I'm a little excitable. They're arresting Eddie for child support. As the funeral continued, I learned that...